What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Going for Two. I am Q1 Humphreys, and the Florida Gators did it. The Florida Gators, defeated the Houston Cougars 65-63 in the national championship game tonight. It was a very, very, very good game to cap off a very, very good tournament and a almost perfect Final Four. But before I dive into that, man, make sure y'all hit the subscribe button, man. Join the family. Like, comment, share with y'all folks. Now let's get right into it. Now, 65-63 win for the Florida Gators. The final possession came down to Houston needing a score to take the lead or tie the game up, and they could not get a shot off. Emmanuel Sharp ended up, he did the little thing where you go up and you just throw the ball down on the ground trying to avoid a block, and it ended up into a turnover. The possession before that, Emmanuel Sharp tried to drive to the basket. Will Richard, who had an exceptional game, finished with 18 points and was a key to this win, got a hand in there and forced a turnover. So the last two possessions for Houston, they did not get a shot up to tie the game, and that's just tough. The final play, they tried to draw up a three. They had Emmanuel, they had Uzan, I think, run off, and then they tried to run a double screen, a screen back to the ball for LJ Cryer for open shot. That did not work, and the ball ended up in Emmanuel Sharp's hand, and he ended up, essentially traveling, before the turnover. But I watched the game, and I watched the second half, and I think, man, what a coaching display this whole tournament was by Tom Golden. I think that's his name. Let me see. Todd Golden. I'm sorry, Coach Golden. By Todd Golden. Every single game, really, ever since the round of 32 against UConn, his team has faced some sort of adversity, and they have just risen to the occasion. I want to say they were down double digits in this game, double digits in the Final Four, double digits in the Elite Eight, and they battled back. He made adjustments every single time and led this team to victory. Tonight, the beginning of the game, Walter Clayton started out 0 for 6 in the first half, could not get nothing. That Houston defense that we knew was going to be a problem made life absolutely difficult for him. They didn't allow him to get no easy looks. The most open shots he was getting were from near half court. And yes, he can hit those shots, but those are not shots that you want to be taking as your first option unless you're Steph Curry or you're hot. But they were setting a lot of screens. That's how he's been operating this whole tournament, just working off the pick and roll, getting a mismatch, and then just either raising up or getting to the cup. And that turned out to be not working in the first half. In the second half, they kind of went away from that. They started to use him more in DHOs and getting backdoor cuts to the basket and, just different things, try to get him open and get him into a rhythm to where he started out 0 for 6, but he finished with, I want to say 13, 14 points in the game and had all of his points in the second half, and every single one of those points were absolutely huge. I want to give a big shout out to Will Richard. Will Richard played his behind off. He came up big in the first half. He hit some shots that kept his team in the game. He had 15 points in the first half, finished with 18. He made some big shots, made some big plays to keep Florida even in the game, because it looked like for a second that Houston was just going to run away with it. The defensive pressure, the three-point shooting they were putting on was absolutely, that's what you expect from the Houston team this year. They've shown where they're going to get. They're going to grit and grind and get after it, and they're going to get their threes up. And that is exactly how they were playing. And, man, I want to talk about Walter Clayton. This guy might have just solidified himself an NBA contract. Over the course of the tournament, he's definitely risen up some draft boards with his play from the beginning to the end. He's been the best player the whole tournament. And this was a player that I talked about. Of course, I'm going to talk about him because he was one of the best players during the regular season. But this is a guy I said he's looking like the best player in the country. And he showed that he was the best player of the tournament all tournament long. And he showed out again tonight. Even in a night where he did not have the best night, he made timely buckets after timely bucket, man. In Florida, it looked like Florida just outgritted and outgrinded the Houston Cougars. And that's something that I did not think I'd be saying in this video. In the second half, Houston, they looked gassed. They looked tired. They couldn't really get nothing going. LJ Cryer shout out LJ Cryer, because he made a bunch of plays that kept them ahead or kept them close late in that game as well. He had a tough putback, one-hand putback tip in, But it's just tough. This is a tough way I feel for Kelvin Sampson and that Houston team, that Houston program, because this is the team that, has had a bunch of really close calls for the past couple of years. They lost in the championship this year, lost in the Sweet 16 last year. A couple Sweet 16 appearances, a Final Four appearance a couple years ago, and this is a team that's always right there. And I have no doubt that Kelvin Sampson is going to be back here really, really soon. We don't know how the transfer portal and stuff's going to look, but I just feel for that team and feel for that program, especially after that emotional win against Duke on Saturday. But I think looking at it, it just seemed like they didn't really have a, I would have liked to see LJ Cryer just figure something out. I would have got the ball in his hands both of the last possessions and just said, hey, you're our guy. We believe in you. Just come on, take us there. Because what they were trying to draw, what they were trying to set up just did not work neither times. And I feel like that's not acceptable. We talked about last game against Duke how you got to be able to inbound the ball and you got to be able to make your free throws to win games. But you got to be able to find a way to get a shot up at the end of games as well. And they just could not do that on back-to-back possessions. That's really, really, really tough. But, I can't take nothing away from Florida, man. This is a program that is quietly becoming one of the top blue bloods in the college basketball world. They have 3 championships since the year 2000. And, that may not seem like a lot, but compared to the rest of the country, that is a lot. They got the back-to-back championships in 07 and 08, and then now in 2025 getting this championship with just a bunch of guys that stayed the course, And I really want to touch on the tournament. I want to touch on this tournament because I believe there was a lot of discourse this tournament about, since there's been no upsets, since there's been no Cinderellas, this tournament is mid. And I just want to say that could be no further from the truth. We saw 3 of the best, probably the best games of the tournament in the Final Four between all the 1 seeds. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, don't be surprised if this continues to happen. With the transfer portal, with the NIL, these mid-major stars are going to come to the blue bloods, going to come to the top teams, and they're going to have that experience, and they're going to fit in with these younger guys a lot easier. I do believe experience is always going to prevail. The seniors and the juniors and those guys that have been in these kind of high-pressure college games are going to prevail over the super stacked freshmen. But I don't know. I think the age of the Cinderellas may be over. It may be over, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too mad about it. We've seen several Final Four national championship games be blowouts because an 11 seed or a 10 seed or even a 6 or 7 seed get to the national championship against one of the best teams and they just run them off the floor. But these it's been high quality basketball. That's all I can say. It's been really high quality basketball, man. I'm looking forward to next season. Looking forward to what these guys do that I saw in this Final Four, what they do in the NBA in the coming months. And we just going to see what happens. But shout out to Florida Gators, man. Them Gator boys stay hot. Until next time, going for 2. We out of here. Yeah.